World War One, World War Two. That's enough. He
Yeah.
said no mas. Unfortunately, it led to a whole bunch of situations where maybe, damn, honestly, we're gonna have to pause
Really?
that. Some gunshots outside.
I don't think that was gunshots. Was that gunshots? Oh, let's talk about Nayib Bukele, the president of El Salvador, and what he's currently doing in El Salvador.
What's he doing, Josh?
Uh, he's doing a lot of things, man.
Well, first of all, who is he for our audience that may not be familiar, and also for your host who is not familiar with?
So Nayib Bukele is the current president of El Salvador. He's been the president since, if I'm not mistaken, I think 2019. I think he's due for re-election next year, actually. Hopefully he gets reelected. Um, Unfortunately, there's only like 2 terms that a president could um, basically serve. But yeah, that's basically it. He's a president. He's I think he's modernizing El Salvador, especially since in 2021 he made it legal for Bitcoin to actually be considered tender, um, legal tender. So I mean, it was the first nation actually worldwide to do that. I'm not sure if that was a good move. Probably for the future, yes, but not right now because crypto crashed and stuff. But he has been averaging out, I think. So he's been buying in at this price as well. So, but yeah, that's Nayib Bukele. Now to talk about his achievements, from what I've seen, from what I've studied on, he's currently decreased the crime rate by I think 56% in one
Year over
year.
year? Nice.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy, right? And unheard of, especially in Latin America. He has been criticized though by presidents like the president of Colombia. They're saying that, the approach he's taking is inhumane because what he's doing is that he's arrested all the gang members or assumed um, gang members. From what I've seen in the videos, I mean, they're all tatted up, and of course, there's always going to be casualties. It is what it is. It happens in war. I mean, it is a war if you think about it, war against, crime. But yeah, man, I've heard that the rate, the crime rate has decreased. And just recently, I was reading the news and I saw that he's actually trying to pass a bill next week to uh get rid of capital gains taxes on any corporation that wants to basically I think it has to be it was a list. It was a software company, basically a technology company. So he's trying to attract, I guess, big tech to El Salvador.
Is he trying to attack, or is he trying to attract the like international companies to come to El Salvador, or is he trying to promote like economic stimulus from
Yeah, I think
within
he's trying. I
El
think he's trying to do
Salvadoran?
both, but I think predominantly what he's trying to do is that he's trying to attract foreign companies because he's getting rid of capital gains for international companies as well. So I'm not sure if he's giving an incentive, like maybe credits in some way for actual, innovators that are actually from El Salvador. That'll be kind of good, right? To promote within versus, attracting foreign talent. Maybe there's talent right there. But yeah, that's that's what he's doing.
So how's he being like? Well, what do you think are some of the primary motivations behind this? Do you think he's more so of a populist, as like are his constituents asking for this, or is this his own kind of plan, in your opinion?
Damn. I think I think this might be his own plan because unless there's a strategist behind everything, I don't know, doing some sort of strategic planning. I'm sure he has his own team that he consults with. But from what I've seen, it seems like the majority of the thought process and the things that are being passed are coming from him. And I mean, you could check online. He has a huge social media presence, and he kind of like, from what I've seen in recent speech that he wants to no longer depend on other countries, right? He wants to become partners with first world co instead of being a third world country. He wants to be a first world country. So he's trying to also develop the infrastructure within El Salvador as well. So he's been looking into different, green energy as well. I haven't seen him implement anything. It's just like, just talks of it. Also, there's which is really interesting. And actually, some of my friends, international friends, I should say, have talked to me about this, how they're already in the process of creating this town. It's going to be called Bitcoin City. It's going to be in the
Yeah,
West
I've heard of that.
Coast.
What is the point of Bitcoin City?
So Bitcoin City, it's supposed to be. I think it will be because he has blueprints, and they already started constructing it, and he already got funding for it, and he's actually like selling plots of land. So if anyone's interested, I'll put in the link below in the description where you could basically, if you're interested in um purchasing land or something in El Salvador. But yeah, so it's supposed to be like a crypto town where everything's going to be paid through, cryptocurrency. Um, not only that, it's meant to promote also the Pacific Ocean. So they supposedly El Salvador has really good it's good for surfing. So it's one of the best places to go surfing. And so it's supposed to be like a touristic area. It's supposed to attract, tourists, and hopefully help the economy.
Interesting. Let's see, what else can we ask about this?
What?
Let's see, what else can we ask about this? Split this into another video.
Oh, um, we could talk about the history and like what happened, I guess, and how they no longer want to be considered like a colony. I mean, they are independent, but like the whole like if you look at the speech that Nayib basically talks about in I think it was last week. Actually, he comes out with the speech every week. He had a bunch of world leaders in this meeting. I'm not sure what the meeting was about, but he basically talks about how he wants to be partners. He no longer wants to be considered a colonized, influenced country, right? He's like, we are, Salvador, we're independent. And also they're getting a lot of heat on human rights because of how he basically, he arrested, don't quote me on this, but it's probably close to 40,000 prisoners or something. He's actually in the process of like transferring 2,000 prisoners each week in a new prison that he built, a new facility. And supposedly it's the biggest prison in Latin America. And so yeah,
Is
getting a
it a
lot of heat.
privately held?
That I do not
Is it
know.
a privately held system?
I don't know. I don't know if it's privately held. That's something I have to look into. Um, I think it's not. I think it's public. I think the government built it, but based on how the jail system works over there, it's kind of crazy. So this jail complex is basically, secure and supposedly they don't have corrupt, cops and all this stuff going on. But a few months ago, before they built this prison, the way things work down there is that the gangsters basically run the jails down there, which is insane. Like they have access to like, prostitutes, they have access to drugs, they have access to good food, because they're able to get, visitors that come in and they basically were, exploiting, citizens and things like that. And they would also bribe cops, right? Because they would have such a huge influence where they would target the cop's family. That's why when you see all the videos, they're always covering their face. It's kind of like Mexico. You see how, the cops cover their face just to hide their identity because they're afraid that there could be repercussion from, the gangsters, or in Mexico, the cartels. Same shit, gangsters, crime, drugs. But yeah, so it's crazy how he's trying to transfer and take away the power away from from the criminals. He also he there's they say that he negotiated with MS-13, and I think the other one's called South 18. It's like two rival gangs and stuff, and MS-13 originated in the USA, and then they kind of like deported all the criminals back to El Salvador, so it was kind of detriment, to the society down there. So yeah, man, it's the way he's approaching things is that he kind of like threatened the leaders, right? The leaders that aren't in jail. They're like, hey, if you want to make sure that your bosses that are locked up eat, then stop killing people and stuff. And another interesting statistic is that I think he has not had any murders in 100 days or something like that, which is crazy because El Salvador used to be the capital of murders at one point of the world. So, um,
How much of that do
seems
you
like
think
it's working.
is? How much do you that? Sorry to step on your line, but how much of that do you think is an actual drop in the murder rate versus a drop in reporting? If I don't report
Ooh,
that there's any murders happening, how do we know that any murders
yeah.
happened?
Yeah, I don't know how they like I don't know if they have like some sort of like,
Like
business
Census
intelligence
Bureau.
like Tableau or something, I don't know how modern they are if they could just run like queries and I'm not sure if they're reporting everything, as well. Like I don't know how well the documentation is. But yeah, it's I mean, I would like to think they're probably off, maybe. Off meaning that
Underrepresenting.
they're yeah, underrepresenting, yeah. I hope. If not, then from what I've seen, I mean, I'm not there, so from what I've seen and what I've seen on social media as well, it's like people, and also people that I've seen that actually live there, that are commenting, on the videos and stuff. They're like, hey, crime has gone down. I feel safer. I'm able to go outside without being extorted. What they used to do, another technique that they used to do, which is really, really like it's like super messed up, is that they would send a kid knock on your door and basically ask you for money, right? Like, hey, if you don't pay up your tax, your monthly tax, your weekly tax, we're gonna shoot down your house or burn it down and stuff like that. And the reason they would, utilize a child is because like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna hurt a child and stuff. So it's like it's a cowardly way of,
A
extorting
shakedown.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically. And so, of course, if they didn't pay their taxes, they would, you can't depend on the police. So they would, they would have to pay the taxes. But from what I've seen on the comments and the news articles that are going on, it seems like that's gone now, man. Like it's actually safe to go out. So, um, which is good.
So you mentioned this before, but to your knowledge, like, does El Salvador have any term limits, or is this guy positioning to be, the strongman type and
Oh
be
yeah.
president forever?
So that's kind of crazy, right? Because yeah, right now they only have a two-term limit. Um, and like he's doing a good job, right? But the thing is, what if the people agree and are like, you know what, let's alter the Constitution or amend something, right? And maybe make him a permanent leader of El Salvador. Or if it goes the other way, right? What if his two terms are over, a new administration comes in with a new plans, new ideology, new everything, and kind of destroys everything that he built, then the country goes back to like the way it was, then what, right? So, I don't know. What do you think? What do you think there's any based on, history, based on what you've seen going on in other countries, like what do you think would happen if they actually make him a permanent leader of El Salvador? Based on what I've told you of Nayib and based on what you've seen in history, because
Yeah,
history tends to repeat itself. So,
there's definitely an argument for the strongman type, where in a situation of disarray, I can imagine that there are some serious benefits of having one solid figure that you can depend on, that your country can turn to and say, hey, do you have the answers to my problems? I can see the general appeal to that. Um, and for most Americans, we live in a one of the most fundamentally advanced societies in the world in terms of how it is that we look at human rights, how it is that we look at systems of government. So it's probably kind of, I can see how people in America would be taken aback by the idea that, having a president forever. Um, but I wouldn't go as far as saying, El Salvador has seen as much, how do you put it, as much progress democratically as, let's say, the United States. So I can't really say whether they're in a position to really benefit from having a strong man, because that eventually turns into some kind of authoritarian, some kind of dictatorship, which has been seen all across Latin America over the past 100 years. So I'm not entirely sure whether it'd be a good play or not, but there sure are benefits in some respects, and probably an equal amount of detriments on the other hand.
Okay. What actually I just thought about something really. What are your thoughts on how to maintain a certain ideology or a certain system that's set in place, like so that the next, upcoming administration stays kind of the same? Like, how do you keep that intact? How do you keep intact also like morality and values across the board when it comes to the transfer of power from one leader to the next?
That's a that's a that's a tough
Yeah,
cookie.
I've thought about it. I'm like, okay, the USA, right? There's the Republicans, there's the Democrats, okay, whatever. But at the end of the day, there's always like there's certain missions and certain tasks, right, that have to be completed. I'm sure that they have on hand an agenda that when a new administration comes in, they pick off on the next, leader, regardless of their political beliefs. So I'm just interested, I mean, anyone that's watching this right now, if you have any idea, maybe you work in some sort of department for the government that you're in charge of, making sure that the transfer of power, happens smoothly. I'm interested in that topic. But what are your thoughts? What would you do to maintain certain things?
Well, you mentioned something that I'm not gonna lie, like made me kind of cringe, and it's the idea of ideology. And take it a step further, we're talking ideology and transfer of power in the same sentence. So
Uh,
the issue being, we have a current system of government, call it country X, has a current system of government with a particular leaning, and if they believe in it so deeply, they call it an ideology. It becomes an ideology, whether they call it one or not. And then the question is, how do we get a successful transfer of power, a democratic transfer of power, um, to a new leader with potentially a new ideology? And so there's a little bit of friction there because chances are, if you voted for the new guy, you either really didn't like the old policy or you are somehow going to protest against the new policy, the new ideology, if you will. So I would honestly say ideology has no place in any kind of successful transfer of power. I don't think it has any real proactive, productive place in any healthy democracy. Um, but no, I'm just kidding. There's no but there in my mind. I'm trying to play devil's advocate. Um, but how do you ensure a successful, transfer of power? Shoot, we live in the most advanced, democracy in the world, in my opinion, and we still can't get that right.
yeah.
So I'm not entirely sure what a good prescription would be, but I would probably start with culture. So if you have a society that's highly invested in, ideology, whatever it may be, you're going to have a problem trying to get people to adapt to a new way of thinking. Um, so you would have to have a culture that is aligned to certain principles, to certain values, that they hold certain ideas above the rest, and that they can point to a true north, and that everything short of that is, can be looked at as a form of a tool. It's a tool, and it either accomplishes a task or a goal in pursuit of that truth, of that highest order, or it doesn't, in which case you put it aside. Um, and in a situation where you're about to have a new leader, I would hope that whoever the new leadership is builds upon whatever it is that the last leader left behind, even if it was against what it is that you're looking for. Like, I would hope that a new leader can separate the good from the bad and try to just build as opposed to spend their time destroying. But again, I think a lot of that has to deal with, the constituent culture of the people.
Do you think like setting something in place where, like let's just say for example, um, you're a world leader of a country and
Terrible
you're
idea.
now you're now you're now wow, that's hilarious, man. I can't stop thinking of like just different scenarios going in my brain, like, if this were true. But yeah, so if you were a world leader, right, what laws or controls can you set in place that would prevent certain tasks that are agreed upon by the majority of the country to continue on? So, like, for example, let's just say they agree on, upgrading all the train systems in this country, right? Everyone agrees on it. They put it up to poll, it was, popularity was like, off the roof. 80% of the country agrees, they should invest taxpayer, money to invest in the train system. Here comes a new world leader, you, and you're like, nah, I want to change that, and I can because I'm the leader of the country. Do you think there should be some law or something in place, some control set in place where it's like, no, the majority of the people agreed on this, and just because you're the leader, you can't change this. We would have to put it back up on the poll, and people would have to again vote on this.
Yeah, it's a
Or,
conversation of
or
checks and balances. It entirely depends on your system of government. Obviously, in a dictatorship, this is not a
I
question for
mean,
debate.
but presidents still do it, right? They do executive orders, and yeah, it has to go through Congress. But like the thing is, like, how about the people, right? Do they
Right.
have
I
any
mean,
say on
that's
that?
even in our own country, in the United States. I mean, the solve for that problem is having a legislature that is representative of both a democracy and a representative democracy or republic, if you will. But you know, the issue is that you're going to have problems with both. So if it's a pure democracy, then it's mob rule. So if you are a new leader, if I'm a new world leader and I walk into a direct democracy where everybody votes on the individual, uh, individual topics, then I run into an issue whenever I want to change direction and it goes against the will of the people. Sorry, excuse me. Cut that out. But what was I saying?
But you know what? I also thought about something. If it were up to the people, it would also take time. So imagine like every single time a new leader would come in and say, "Hey, yeah, the majority of the people wanted this, but I think we should do this." You have to bring it back to the people. People have to go to the polls, assuming, the majority. Some people, I would like to think the majority would vote, but some
But the
people don't like
majority
going
don't.
out to vote. Yeah, they think about it. You have to go out. Some people have to work. If they could find a way that it could like, it's, they can make it like an app on your phone that's secure. That's another thing, right? That app would probably get attacked nonstop, right, by foreign countries. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure. But if they could find a way that they could actually make it super secure to the point where, its integrity is there and, they can't really alter the votes. I think, it would actually promote people to vote versus like, actually getting up. People are becoming technology dependent now, and people don't have time or don't want to, get up and, go to vote or mail it in, right?
But I think you're
Um,
missing. I think you're missing like there's a big elephant in the room, which is even in a democracy where people have the right to choose and vote on whatever they want, in a pure democracy, even where you get direct representation, your vote counts towards the issue. Um, the people voting aren't necessarily the best people qualified
yeah,
to make that
yeah,
decision.
that's true,
Um,
yeah.
like you can have a million people out of put it this way, out of a million people, you can have all million vote for one answer. That doesn't it makes it the most popular. It doesn't make it the best
Yeah, it doesn't make it
option.
right too. But it kind
Right.
of shows like it kind of shows direct of where your people stand, right, as well.
Well, then at that point, your political leader, your world leader at that point, they're a figurehead. They're not
Yeah.
really doing much. They're a leader in name only, um, a representative of the people. But it doesn't really matter in a system where the people get to directly vote on all the issues. Um,
Yeah, and also like not everyone is a subject matter expert, right? So they want to have their best interest, in voting for something like, like if they want to get rid of something and it's something that, could benefit a certain group of people, but the majority of the country doesn't qualify on that topic, and so they're going to vote no, and then it doesn't get passed, and then the group of people that actually needed that are not going to get what they need, and so
right.
so
A well informed public is a very tall order, even with modern technology. We
yeah.
have access to the world's data at our fingertips, and we still spend all our time, looking at TikToks as opposed to learning about issues that actually matter.
Yeah. Give me any beat.